Well, Larry and, Dave
Let's talk about the game in.
Okay. We do have,
Oh, that's
this
it.
is a forum, right? Talking to.
It's a talking head.
Big boy.
Okay.
You got to slide down the pole, so you go to fire.
What's that?
Okay, it's 5:31 and we do have a quorum, so we will be calling the meeting to order. First thing on the agenda is the roll call. David Bullion. Larry Jackson,
Here.
Liliana Welliver here. Richard Laughlin,
Here.
Sam Childers.
Here.
Joe Salinas.
Here.
And Amy Slaughter. I would like to welcome you to the November 15th meeting of the Historic Review Board. The Historic Review Board is an advisory board appointed by the City Council. I am Jessica Middle, Vice Chair of the Historic Review Board. It is the function of the board to consider all applications for certificates of appropriateness for properties in the historic district and for landmarks. In considering whether to approve or disapprove of an application for a certificate of appropriateness, the Historic Review Board shall be guided by the City of Fredericksburg design guidelines and standards and the Historic Preservation Ordinance. If anyone present wishes to speak in favor or in opposition to any item on today's agenda, please sign up on the persons to be heard sheet. It is not necessary to sign up to speak if you are the owner of or representative for a project on the agenda. You will be called on as the case is called. Approval by the board does not take the place of any type of permit. Permits must be obtained for all work. No work of any type is to be started without obtaining the appropriate city permits after a certificate of appropriateness has been issued by the Historic Preservation Officer. Do we have anyone here for public comment? I don't think so. So let's move on to the Historic Preservation Officer's report. Anna?
Good evening. Couple things to update you on. We were gonna have a joint training next, we're gonna have it tomorrow, but that got rescheduled to December 1st. That's the planning and zoning and ZBA and historic review board. That'll be conducted by our city secretary and city attorney. So hope you can all join us on the 1st, and Gary's gonna provide lunch. So hope you can join us then. Also an update, we have a vacancy on the Historic Review Board. That will be on the December 6th agenda for City Council to appoint someone to replace Michael McCree. And in our department, I've been named the interim director of development services and continuing as the Historic Preservation Officer. So that's the change in our department. And that's all I've got.
Okay, well, then we can move on to item 5 on the agenda. Approval of the minutes for the October 11th meeting. Does anyone have any corrections?
I move that we accept them.
Okay. Motion made. Do we have a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The minutes are approved as presented. Item number 6, certificate of appropriateness applications. We're going to begin with application number 22-101 for 803 North Lano. Anna?
All right, so this is the C1 zone. It's a landmark on North Lano Street. And it's a high rated, obviously, landmark. And the applicant is requesting to re-rate the outbuilding to allow for demolition. The main house has a high rating and was built around 1890. The outbuilding is not of the same era, style, or materials as the landmark. The structure has been altered with infill materials, and staff recommends re-rating to allow for demolition. The applicant is here.
Okay, great. So since we don't have a podium, we just like him to stand.
Would you like me to?
Yeah, if you could just, yes, if you could just stand, state your name, and just tell us a little bit about your project. Welcome.
So my name is Alan Kershaw. It's nice to meet you all. We bought the property 2 years ago. We really started going through the process here about 2 months ago. And so originally we had thought about the property as being more of creating it to be more of a boutique hotel concept. But we're rethinking it right now. So to be honest, I'm not quite sure exactly where we're heading. I'm working with Mustard Designs and we're gonna see what's the best use of the property. I'm not quite sure if we're gonna demo this building yet. We may just, we're not quite sure yet what's gonna be there, but we wanted to get it re-rated to low, so we have the option to do what we want to do. Figure out what we want.
Okay, any discussion items from the board? Any discussions?
Make a motion to approve application 22-101. Second.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say sign. Okay, motion carries. Application 22-101 is approved. Thank you. It's a beautiful building. I can't wait to see what you're gonna do with it.
Excited, right? Thank you.
Okay, let's see, application number 22-102 at 409 West Austin Street. And
And also a high-rate structure. The proposal is to remove an existing non-historic rear addition, construct a new two-story rear addition with a hyphen. Repair the original wood windows, replace non-historic front doors with more appropriate door, clean and repoint the masonry. Replace the front porch column bases and replace front porch siding with wood composite wrap siding and replace the metal beams with new metal roof return reviews. So I've cited the relevant sections of the design guidelines, including roofs, cornices, additions. So item A, the existing rear addition is not of historic significance and can be removed without impacting the integrity of the main structure. Item B, proposed new addition adequately uses the hyphen connector to separate the bulk of the new addition from the historic house. The design, materials, and location are appropriate based on the Fredericksburg design guidelines, section 3.3 for additions. Item C, the original wood windows are in need of repair and staff recommends approval as submitted. Item D, the current front doors are more commercial in style and not period appropriate. The proposed five panel wood doors are more in keeping with the time period of the historic house and staff recommends approval. Item E, the masonry shows signs of organic growth and staff recommends the applicant follow National Park Service brief on repair for cleaning masonry. Item F, the existing concrete bases are a common way of preventing further decay of wooden proposed. The proposed stone bases are an appropriate material to achieve the same result as concrete and staff recommends approval. Item G, staff recommends the porch siding be replaced in kind with wood, not a composite material for section 3.25 of porches. Item H, staff recommends approval of the roof replacement with turn bridges per section 3.23.
okay, great. Brandon, welcome. Tell us about the project.
Brandon with SKT Architects. I have the owner with me here, Kevin Montgomery. We've been working over the last several months, trying to get this project going and exploring the next phase of its life for this historic structure. It's been leased very expensive over the past, 25 years that you've owned it. But you've since moved back from DC and is wanting to make it his primary residence. And so that is the goal here, is we're trying to restore the historic structure and add an addition to make it livable for today's modern times, and have an addition that'll complement the historic structure. So this is considered your retirement home. So this is parents did live in the house right next door. So that's where you're currently residing until the house is completed.
Well, that is very exciting. Does anyone have any questions for the applicant?
There's a little discrepancy, Brandon, in your proposal. It says the historic windows viewable from Main Street will be repaired. And Anna's asking that all historic windows be repaired, or you're not, are you planning on doing something on the back of the house? With those windows, or are they gonna be
We responded
repaired?
to Anna's comment about that, so anything visible from Main Street would be restored. But we were hoping to keep that option open on the back side of the house, that we could replace those windows. Just for budget reasons, if we could just replace those windows with something of an architectural compatible window. Versus restoring every single window in the house.
You got it? About there. Did they all should be? Yeah.
That's regardless of if it doesn't go for Main Street.
Yes, it doesn't matter, I think,
All
the way I
windows.
understand. Since it's a high rating, they should all be repaired.
We're talking about really four windows right on the back side of that. It will be exposed.
And there's one that's closed now, it's a closet in the bathroom. That was being.
Right, so that
was so big, that's.
Right, that window does not exist, so there is one window on the backside that you can't see that is basically a closet, so. We can't restore what's not there, so. We're proposing at least that one could be just a new architecturally compatible window.
Or you could build another one to match. Are you gonna recreate the opening?
Yeah, the masonry opening is there. All the windows on the addition are going to be a fiberglass clad wood window. So, that one window on the back that we would be filling that masonry opening. The thought was that we would have that as a fiberglass clad as well, but I guess we could go back with a wood window, match the others, but it's just another maintenance. There's just more maintenance involved in that one. So are you open to that, Kevin? If you are.
Question for you on the roof. What was the original roof on this house? Do you know?
It's hard to tell from the historic photos there. I don't know if it was a shingle or it's one of these things it's shingle. It looks like a shingle there.
So it's probably 1x4 lats underneath.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we haven't really dug into the bones of the structure to really see what layers are still there. But we were proposing to go back with a standing seam roof because that'll complement the addition in the back.
Brandon, are you okay with the porch siding be replaced with wood instead of the hardy board or?
Yeah, I talked with Kevin, he's
Okay.
open to that, so
Okay.
if that's the board preference, then
Okay.
I don't see that as. Again, I was just thinking maintenance,
Sure.
the composite siding will maintain better over time, but with the regular maintenance of the siding, I think it'll last a good while, so. We're not talking about a lot of wood siding here, so.
Right, okay, good.
Brandon, are you submitting for the addition too? Because we don't have anything in our packet about the addition. No
Yeah, the
floor
addition
plans or
as
anything
well.
else.
There's
cut off.
be a floor plan.
The pages we're looking at is part of floor plan.
The blank ones?
Yes, they're all in the electronic file.
There's
They've been cut off.
Oh.
a connector on the back side of the house.
Wow.
We can give those.
I got a wine cellar.
Just support bar.
That's all I got to do.
We got just a piece.
Is there an elevation or just rendering so that we can see the height?
You got an elevation.
It's rendering, but I believe we know the height on the rendering. 22 feet. Lining up with the existing face on the
Okay.
back side of the house.
So what's the height of the addition, and since we don't have an elevation, what's the height of the addition compared to,
22 feet to the plane line.
what's the peak compared to the other peak?
We made it a shallower pitch of like a 5-on-12 pitch compared to the 6 or 8 that's on the historic structure to try to keep that height down. The difference between the peak and the existing historic bridge, I don't have offhand. But we left it with sufficient height to keep it shallow, but also allow us to have our air conditioning system and things like that in there.
A rough estimate of the distance, the difference? 1
Maybe
foot?
2 feet plus another probably 6 feet or so to the bridge.
So 31 foot, what's the peak on the old house? What's the ridge height on the old house?
I don't have that information on the end.
What's the plate height?
It should be matching, the addition right there should line up. The plate height of the existing house. Do you have that picture of the connector? There's another image of it. I don't know if it shows it connecting to the back side of the house. Almost, I see the fascia aligns with the backside.
So the fascia aligns.
Mhm. Yeah, and that connector is definitely below the ridge line, we made sure of that.
But you think the ridge on the addition is higher than the ridge on the original house?
I can't say for sure. But it kind of is what it is based on the massing of the form. So again, the plate, the slope or the pitch of the roof is made shallow intentionally to try to keep that height down. But I didn't want to make it too shallow to, for this. For the look of this house, I think shallower roof pitch would have looked a little odd. So 5-on-12, that was appropriate.
You don't know if the ridge is higher than that old house.
Not confirmed that. It's not.
Brandon.
No.
I can't believe that, buddy.
If you're looking at Main Street, you're never gonna see the height, you're never gonna see that roof form above the historic house, if that's what you're getting at.
No.
I don't see that. I don't think anyone would capture it that way, so,
All right, but it is higher, right?
no, I can't say. I honestly can't say. It could be, but I can't confirm that.
Think about the floor plan.
Maybe still in the office and get her to confirm.
Okay.
that. Right now, I think.
So he is connecting through a casement, not blowing out the wall, but just
Right,
using the
correct.
existing.
My opinion, again, we're being sensitive to that historic structure because we've got a very narrow connector, a very shallow roof line that we're tying into it with. So, to me, that gives us the ability to go a little larger with the addition behind that connector because we're not butting it up directly against the house.
Going back to the roof
Mhm.
on our little guideline here, we got a little section that says selecting period appropriate roofing materials.
Mhm.
And since this is a high rated building,
Mhm.
should we not do a little bit more homework on trying to find out what the original roof was on that building?
Well,
Instead of going with a galvalume silver roof. And we're getting a lot of those silver roofs up and down Main Street. And it's starting to take away from the different colors we had back in the day.
Mhm. Well, I think a lot of these historic structures over time were re-roofed.
Right.
Over their
Definitely,
history,
yeah.
a lot of them staying in the scene.
Mhm.
And so, if this one did not have a standing seam originally, I still think it's appropriate to go back with a standing seam because it is an appropriate roof style for the architecture, so.
But there was no research done into what was originally Like wood shingles, wood shakes,
No,
or,
I mean, we
or
we
anything
could
like that?
investigate that and go up in the attic and actually see if there's still evidence of that
Mhm.
shingle roof up there, but we just have not. Taken it that far.
Well, this
other
being
than
a high rated building,
Right,
I mean,
but
and
we're
it's,
going back with a better roof, more
Well-
appropriate roof than what's there now.
yes and no.
So,
Okay, so, the, wood shakes, if installed properly, and high grade shingles, cedar shingles, they will give
right,
you
no, I
40, 50
understand
years.
that. I'm just saying what's there now, the 5B crimp roof that's on there now.
Oh,
We're
yeah,
going back to
definitely.
Something better than what's there now.
Yeah, that was probably put in after 1946, that big hailstorm we had.
Right.
Yeah, like that. They
So your
slapped it
point
right
is-
over the top, yeah.
Yeah, so no doubt that, those EndurShake shingle roofs, they are a good roof. We've used them on other projects.
Mm-hmm.
But it is a very expensive roof system as well.
To your point, it probably is a wood shingle.
Yeah, either wood shingle or wood shake,
Yeah,
one of the two. And, there are some really good fire treated,
There are.
red cedar shakes and wood shingles out there.
Mhm.
And most of them come out of Canada now, but there are some good materials.
The product we've used is EndurShake.
Well, that's a composite, that's a synthetic product. The
Uh,
Endura,
I didn't believe it was a synthetic
yeah,
product.
Endura is a composite, is a synthetic shingle.
That was a fire treated wood product, is my understanding, but regardless, it is an expensive product too, so we're trying to be budget conscious where we can, and I know standing seam is not a cheap roof, but it is a quality roof. We're trying to.
Well, but yet, we've got a house here that's high rated, and we have an opportunity to cosmetically put it back to the way it was when it was built. I mean, adding to the cosmetics up and down Main Street is what I'm kind of looking at.
Right.
You know, I mean, you, like I said earlier, make a comment, you drive up and down Main Street, all you see is silver roofs. And a lot of those were not that way. They've been changed out. So I think it's time to kind of start looking at this a little deeper as to what kind of roofs we're putting on these buildings. Like that, to try to get them back to the period that they were. Some of this material is not available anymore, like that turn metal that all these old tinners roofs were made out of. It's no longer available. Well, I say that, no, it is available, but it comes out of Germany. Okay, so by the time you bring it out of Germany to here, of course, the cost is tremendous. So therefore you can't afford to really use it unless it's a really like national historic building or something like that, where you've got to really get back with the same stuff. So, but to me, those are my comments. I mean, I'm in the roofing business and I do this on a daily basis, and but you know, I see this house, I drove by it earlier and well, you know, that's a jewel. But it needs a little tender loving care. And cosmetically dressing it up. It would be a showcase like that, but I can't see a silver roof on it.
Yeah.
You know, so that's why I'm,
Are you talking about the same kind of roof they put on the Catholic church?
or the Kamala House.
yeah.
Kamala House, yeah.
Yeah,
Something like
which
that.
we went against the standing seam on the Kamala House and went back to
Yeah, I mean,
the wood.
these are the jewels we have in town that we really need to look at.
I would agree with you. It at least deserves investigation to see
At
what's
least.
underneath the V drain. Because we know the V drain wasn't original.
Right.
I also think we need elevations to consider this application.
So what is the ultimate goal with the elevations? If the ridge is higher on the addition than this historic roof, what are your,
Well, I think the
Thoughts on
guidelines
that?
are pretty specific on that, Brandon.
are they?
Yeah.
So the ridge of the addition cannot be any higher than this,
I think the guidelines are specific.
even with the connector that we're providing, that back addition cannot be any higher.
The guidelines are there.
Okay, so.
Is it the whole
What
back
we agree
addition?
then to make the addition bridge at the same level of the historic structure, can we at least agree on that?
That's an annotation.
Versus having-
Versus the guidelines.
We pass it the buck here.
Oh, no. I mean, I understand what you're trying to do, but also understand precedents and everything else.
Trying to get some attic space in the structure too, you know, to be able to actually have some functional space for ductwork and things like that as well.
I get it, but
Yeah.
we all deal with this every day in the district. And there's a reason we have the guidelines.
Well, I just, we brought additions in here before, I just don't recall that being a statement point. So I'm not familiar with that at that point, I'd have to look at it.
Right.
I mean, are you asking to resubmit?
Well, I think we need to resubmit based on the roofing, if nothing else,
Yeah.
and we can't consider the application.
Right.
I mean, we could basically approve some of it.
So for the two,
So the design guidelines for addition, height and massing, the setback new additions from the historic buildings, so the historic building retains visual emphasis, required setback behind the. For high rated, it means required setback behind historic rear wall, which this one is doing. Item F, additions may gain additional height the further they are set back with a maximum height of no more than 10 feet taller than the historic building. Measured from the historic building's original roof peak to the addition's roof peak. Appropriate if set back behind the historic rearmost wall. Sounds like it's meeting that requirement.
It sounds like we don't, that's why I wanted an elevation to see if
So
we're below
you
that.
said it could be within 10 feet higher
Higher than.
than the historic ridge if it's properly set back. Well, I think we would certainly fall within that, but if we need to send follow-up documentation to Hannah as confirmation for that approval, if it's a conditional approval based on that criteria, we can follow up with that documentation. Absolutely.
Does anyone want to form a motion to exclude the roof from the application approval upon further research and provide on a documentation about the height of the addition?
Can I make one more comment on that? Can we verify that is that also a stipulation of the guidelines or the standards that you must go back with the original roof of the structure? Or can it come back with an architecturally compatible roof of that era?
Joe, what's the difference in those two roofs price wise? Twice as much.
That's not in our purview. That's not in our purview in our decision.
I know.
But you're requiring in order to make that decision, and it is a budget concern.
Right, but if we have historic evidence, Brandon, it's like if we had historic windows or historic doors or any of the fabric of the building, that's what we're presented with and that's what we have to go by. So if you went over there and you pulled off the V drain and there's standing seam underneath it, you can go back with standing seam. If you go over there and you pull off the V drain and there's shingles, yeah, then that's
That's why I'm asking if there is a standard that we have to meet, that if there is evidence of an original roof, do we have to go back and put that
Yeah,
original?
right
roof?
here.
Because-
selecting period appropriate roofing materials.
So, but standing seam is period appropriate.
And there's precedent where it's been allowed.
no, I think the precedence is the Catholic Church because they wanted to put standing seam on there and they went back with shingles.
I'm trying to think of the restaurant at 342 that we're doing at Mile in Maine. There was some shingles on the backside of that, and we went back to standing seam.
I know the church was a big one because the Pope came or the bishop came and he was not happy that night.
And on my part, it was. They replaced the mention.
That was a shingle where they replaced it with standing
Right,
seam.
and also. With it on and on.
Mhm.
And some of that was under the old guidelines too.
Oh, that's
Should be
right.
even
Go
older
back,
projects,
yeah.
yeah.
Because this, we just got this.
There's a few guidelines that speak to this topic. I think what you're referring to, item M, replace an existing non-historic roof with a standing seam metal roof. Also may be acceptable for some roofs, regardless of the original roof material, if the original roofing material is not a character defining feature of the building style. Where appropriate, the new metal roof should use detailing appropriate to the time of construction. And that's appropriate for high. So I guess you have to make the determination if the roof is character defining.
Would think so. Look at it.
It's painted red.
But if it's wood shingles, it would be character defining.
The two within themselves are character defining, I guess, but of that specific house style. I could go either way. I mean, it's, some have shingles, some have standing seam.
Most
So
of them
is
had
it-
shingles originally
is
red,
it-
and you know that.
Is it a defining feature of that house? I don't
I think so.
Yeah, most of these houses here in Fredericksburg like that had wood shingles or shakes on them. And on the shallower porches, like the porch right there, they had maybe standing seam. Yeah. And that's the typical design style of the Sunday houses back in the day.
Arnie, do you think, you know the age of the roof, the porch? I can't tell from this picture, but what is there in this photo?
I know every historic photo we have has a tree. Yeah, we were looking to actually see if it had an option up there, but, or a two-story porch, because it looked like one of those windows that front was built, inbuilt at one point. But we couldn't confirm that, but we can see from here, at least it didn't have a two-story porch.
There is an attic space, right? Up there,
Yeah.
then there would be ghost marks like nail
Yeah, no,
holes
there's an attic scuttle, we just need to get up there and see if there's any evidence of that.
Where I was thinking that might be a compromise if the roof of the porch could be shingle. Smaller, but.
Well, in my opinion, I think it warrants a little more investigation, a little more homework on the roof part. And then to see what really was on it, and then we'll take it from there.
Okay, so from what I'm hearing, Joe would like to see item number 8, or item 8,
A little
come
more
back, a
homework.
little more investigation, come back for the next, but can anyone make a formal motion for A through G?
And now the wood windows, you mentioned that all wood windows would be
Yeah.
repaired, right?
I
All
agree. I would.
wood windows.
If it was
What
me,
num-
but
what letter
personally, I
is
would
that?
make
That's
it
C. C is
C.
the windows.
C, that's- And then I think we were
Larry mentioned the
G.
composite siding on G.
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 Yeah,
Okay.
and I just put okay next to that.
Well, since we don't have the floor plan in our packet, does it meet the guidelines? The addition, setback?
Yes, I was recommending that.
So it was submitted.
With the elevations, bridge.
With the elevation.
Right there on the screen.
Okay.
Usually perspectives are preferred over the elevations, just because they give you more realistic view of that addition. That's what we prefer.
Yeah.
Ready?
I'm ready whenever.
Madam Chair, I propose a motion to approve item A, B, C with the notation that all wood windows will be repaired on the high value building. D as it stands, E as it stands, F as it stands, G with a note that no composite siding, and H that more investigation be done before approval of the standing seam metal roof is considered.
I just have a question. What about the missing window? What would you like to be done with that? Because there's one that's missing that has to be added.
Is it on the,
It's on the original building. No,
could be replicated,
Yeah.
could be rebuilt or reproduced?
Perfect. So do you mind reading that back as
Yeah.
you have it? Thank you.
Joe made a motion to approve items A, B, C for staff recommendations, D, E, F, G to include no composite material, and then no consideration of item H.
Hey, can I get a second?
Second.
Hey, all in favor? Any more discussion?
There is consideration of item H, and that's become more evident.
Okay, we still have a second for that one?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Any more discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say sign. Motion carries. So you're welcome to move forward with everything except for age. With the exception of the windows as far as repairing them, and then also the wood not being the composite. Okay, okay, and then we'll see you next time. Okay.
Thank you. You're gonna verify it's less than 10 foot taller, huh?
Yeah. Beautiful building. Thank you so much for being a steward of the property.
It deserves.
Yes.
It deserves to be said back.
Perfect, okay. So, I think we're on to item number 7, other discussion items.
Which we already discussed.
You already discussed the discussion. Okay, perfect.
Unless you guys have anything else.
I do have one other thing. What are we at on getting the posts replaced on the Main Street buildings that were taken out in,
I was
Car
wondering that
crash.
same thing today.
it's been over a year.
You're gonna get back to us.
Falling off the road.
Okay, did you do some of those? Are you stabilized?
I stabilized them and I stayed down.
No.
But I know, Pennick said they sent theirs off to get them fixed last time, but I know they're still temporarily hanging up there in the air. And I think there's still others that have temporary shoring underneath underneath that line.
Perfect. Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor, a second?
Second.
Second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign, meeting adjourns.